Depth Charge, back again, and ready to take on my next challenge, which is to review one of the most revered and celebrated video games of all time, Final Fantasy VII. As you're watching this video, please consider subscribing and hitting that thumbs up button, as well as checking out my other channels. I appreciate the support. I am going to be very focused in this review, mostly discussing the portion of Final Fantasy VII that takes place in Midgar at the beginning of the game. Also, the version of this game I am reviewing is the one on the original PlayStation. It is hopefully obvious as to why I am doing this. In the intro video to this channel, I mentioned that my next game to play will be Final Fantasy VII Remake. So what better way to prepare for the remake is there than to play the original, and talk about it here on YouTube and BitChute. I first played Final Fantasy VII when I was in college in the late 90s, and I bought it during the summer of 1998, when it came out for the PC, because I did not have a PlayStation console at the time. The PC port is fine, but inferior to the console version. It was some years later that I got to play this masterpiece on the system it was meant to be played on, the PlayStation 1. And yes, Final Fantasy VII is a masterpiece. It's far from perfect, but the experience playing this game is one that has had such an impact on fans that we, the fans, have been asking for a remake since the days of the PlayStation 2. We have wanted to see all the characters in HD, 1080p, 4K, or whatever the new fancy term is. And now we have it, something I never thought would ever be made. A remake that was built from the ground up. And this is one of the reasons why I say that Square Enix is the greatest video game production company of all time. Alright, on to the review. This review will be split up into 3 parts. Part 1, the story. Part 2, the characters. And finally, Part 3, the gameplay. After my review of the original Final Fantasy VII concludes, I will give my predictions as to what I think I will enjoy the most about the remake. Storytelling in video games is challenging, to say the least. For me personally, story is secondary to things like gameplay, game mechanics, and the fun factor. However, in role-playing games, story is very important. There's a literal planet to explore in some of these games, so this world must be fleshed out and a narrative told to the player on top of having gameplay mechanics and character development. This is why making a good role-playing video game is more challenging than making a good game within other genres, in my opinion. The story of Final Fantasy VII is very good. Not the best I have ever seen in a video game, but very good nonetheless. It grabs you from the beginning when the protagonist Cloud jumps off the train and is thrust into battle for the first time. His dialogue with Barret is good too, establishing a conflict from the start and what these two characters' roles are. As we weave through the story, the player is granted control, and then control is taken away, and the portions of control being taken away aren't too long as to bore me. In fact, I do enjoy revisiting the scenes within Midgar, as the lines of dialogue are well written, and it's fun to see the characters meet each other for the first time. There's a reason why Square Enix promoted Cloud and Aerith's first meeting when she offers him a flower, and Cloud and Tifa's conversation at the bar. These are iconic moments in storytelling in the world of role-playing games. The setting of the story is really, really good, if I do say so myself. Square flirted with a setting that has technology as well as magic in Final Fantasy VI, and they went even further in 7 in the technology direction. The city of Midgar has cool stuff like TVs, cars, and motorcycles, as well as the other things we expect from a JRPG, magic and monsters. I do like this change of setting as compared to previous games in the series, which is an opinion I believe that was not very popular in the late 90s. The dynamic of a small group of heroes fighting against the big bad corporation isn't a relatively new concept in storytelling. In many stories on TV and in movies, we have seen corporations only care about money and power. And in this story, the Shinra Electric Power Company is polluting and killing the planet. We are told early in this game that the planet is a living entity that must be saved by our scrappy group of friends. One of the reasons I enjoy this game's story is that I really like the characters, the flow from one event to the next is done well, and I don't feel that I'm being preached at by the game or the story. The heroes have their flaws and struggles, and in one sense, they are total hypocrites. You see, the way the characters use magic and learn abilities in the game is to utilize materia, which comes from the planet. It's a natural resource. They use magic to fight the bad guys who are from the big bad corporation. Now, what is the corporation doing to the planet? It's harvesting the same natural resource from the planet, not to cast magic spells necessarily, but to power the lights and to perform experiments on people. But when the big bad corporation harvests natural resources, it's bad. And when the heroes use it to cast magic and learn abilities, it's good, right? That is a great point of discussion, which is why I love stories that have these complex dynamics. Let's get back to the corporation Shinra. Shinra is also the government of the city of Midgar. We actually get to meet the mayor, but he admits that he is just a figurehead and has no political power. Some may say that the story of Final Fantasy VII is anti-capitalism, and I would disagree. You see, in a true capitalist economic system, the government consists of elected officials who are granted the power to tax the citizens and hold people and businesses accountable when they violate others' rights. However, the business or corporation in this game is the government, and the president of the corporation acts like a dictator who can set a tax rate without a vote. That's not capitalism, that's tyranny. The story of this game creates a conflict between the protagonists and a small group of individuals who wield a lot of political power. And this power is not granted by the consent of the governed. If anything, one of the themes of this story is anti-tyranny, not anti-capitalism. To end my analysis of the story, let me talk about the introduction of the big baddie of the game, Sephiroth. In the original game, we don't get to see Sephiroth within Midgar. We see him in a flashback scene later in the town of Calm, after the team leaves the big city. There are many reasons why Sephiroth is so iconic of a villain, and I think one of them is his relationship with Cloud, and the dynamic of control that he has over Cloud throughout the game. This dynamic is teased within Midgar, as well as his sheer strength and willingness to murder others. In most every role-playing game, your characters start as very weak, and teasing Sephiroth's strength this early in the game provides motivation for the player to grow stronger and learn new abilities. In a sense, it's unfortunate that Sephiroth is shown in all his glory in the remake, but I do understand why they chose to do that, since the remake literally only takes place in Midgar, and it would have been a missed opportunity to not show Sephiroth's face in the new game. However, I have seen a portion of the scene that pits Cloud against Sephiroth in the remake in one of the trailer videos, and the scene looks a little cringy. But I'll eventually see it for myself and then make that ultimate judgment. Now, on to the characters. I really like the characters in Final Fantasy VII. In the limited time we get to see them in this beginning part of the game, a lot is established as far as their relationships with each other and their motivations, and it feels natural when they talk about the past, meet each other for the first time, or fight amongst each other. It's not a stretch to say that Cloud is a legendary protagonist, and that is the reason why he was chosen as Final Fantasy's representation in Smash Bros. I think one of the reasons for his legendary status is that there is so much mystery that surrounds him throughout the game. And this mystery is established very early on, like when he shakes for the first time in Hojo's laboratory. We meet Cloud and Barret first, and Barret is a mixed bag for me. He is rough and tough, but also has love for his adopted daughter, Marlene. He admits that he doesn't understand what the heck is going on, which might be the writers poking fun at the absurdity of JRPG plots, which also might indicate to some that he is not the brightest bulb in the box. But I think actually he is very smart. Barret just chooses to focus on what he is good at, fighting for a cause he believes in. What makes Barret a mixed bag for me is his over-the-top nature and mannerisms. From the start, he is rude and crude, and just can't accept why Cloud doesn't care about the planet. I'm not opposed to characters who are rude and pushy, but his over-the-topness rubs me the wrong way. And I think that's because he's not very smooth about it. I have to admit, I am a sucker for smoothness and sophistication in characters. And I wonder why that is. And Barret just doesn't click with me as someone who yells and is always ready for a fight. Maybe it's my own biases creeping in when I hold this against Barret, but that is how I feel about him regardless. Now, let's move on to who might be the most iconic female character of all time in role-playing games, and maybe all video games, Tifa. Tifa is both kind and tough, as well as assertive. Her moves in battle give us the most insight into her mannerisms, since the blocky nature of her character outside of battle doesn't do her justice. And her moves in battle are amazing. We get to see at least 2 of her special moves, called limit breaks, in Midgar. And in 1997, it was pure joy to see a character as beautiful as her move with such grace and elegance. Square hit a home run in her creation, and have used her popularity to its fullest extent. Beyond her looks and movements, she is dynamic, from her hints that there may be more to her and Cloud than just childhood friends, to her kindness in taking care of Marlene, to her willingness to pretend to be an escort in order to get information from Don Corneo. All of these qualities about her fit so well together to create a three-dimensional character that it's no wonder that fans adore her, now and forever. She is everything we could ever ask for in a strong lead character. And her portrayal in the remake is what I am looking forward to the most, as compared to any other. Many will disagree that Tifa is the best female character, if not the best character, in this game. And of course they would be wrong. But that is okay. Aerith is also among the greatest characters ever conceived in video game history, and for obvious reasons. From the introduction of her, as the first character to be seen in the intro movie, to meeting Cloud and offering him a flower, to traveling with him throughout the slums, her character exudes positivity and confidence, which is hard to come by in the slums of Midgar. Her character design, I think, complements her as a support character that the player probably chooses to be in the back row within battle. There's no need to put forth many physical attacks when she is holding a thin pole that is loaded with powerful magic materia. Finally, Red 13, who I will call Red. What I like about him is that he is calm, intelligent, and collected to contrast the hysteria of Barret or the tense situation that the party is in, trying to save Aerith from captivity. It's also clear that he has the ability to harm others and is very strong, but chooses to hold back from injuring his captor, Hojo. Red is unique to say the least, and has few words, but the writers didn't need words to tell us what they needed to communicate about him during this short part of the game. Potentially the most important part of any video game is the gameplay. This is rough, to say the least. Final Fantasy VII was Square's first attempt at a 3D experience, so it was inevitable that it was going to be difficult to design a controller scheme, battle system, and difficulty level for a game that they had hoped would reach a larger audience than any previous entry in the series up to that point. The controls work fine, but they are frustrating. This game was made at a time when there was no analog stick, so the movements throughout the dungeons, towns, and world map are tougher to navigate than within other titles in the series. To simply run, we have to press the cross button, which is now a silly thing to put into a control scheme of a game, which has been later fixed in newer versions, thankfully. Navigating the world created in this game is, again, fine, just like the controls, but frustrating. Getting in the right position to do the thing that is necessary to move forward can be tricky to do, to say the least. The more famous example of this is when the player has to navigate a maze of sorts to climb out of the slums to attempt to infiltrate Shinra headquarters. Now it's time to analyze the battle system. Battles are a lot of fun. Movements of the characters are swift and responsive, and the animations of sword swings, punches, and spells play out with good sound effects. One of the most significant changes to battle was the addition of limit breaks. This is not the first time special attacks that are way too powerful were put into battle. That would be Final Fantasy VI. But they did it in a blatant way in 7 with a meter attached to these special moves and cool animations. Since the limit break meter, or limit bar, fills relatively slowly, I think limits are designed well since they aren't used all the time. Some may say that battles are too easy in Final Fantasy VII, and they would be correct. But that is okay with me. Very few main Final Fantasy games, if any, are very high in the difficulty department. And again, that is okay with me. The use of magic in 7 makes battles pitifully easy, even in Midgar. And summon spells aren't even available in Midgar. But like I have said before, I'm okay with battles being easy in Final Fantasy games. I play these games for the fun experience, and these games are very high in the fun department, even with easy battles. There are lots more things I could talk about in regards to this game, but this video is running rather long, so I will say just a few more things about it. I really like the materia system, especially combining two of them using the slots that are linked together. The graphics are excellent for the time, but looking back on it, it's easy to look down on blocky characters and the need to imagine bullets coming from Barret's gun in certain scenes. But we need to remember the limited technology that was available at the time. And finally, I want to unleash my inner fanboy. It's amazing that Square was able to create such a beloved game that is a masterpiece in 3D with the limited technology of the time. And what do I say is the main reason this game is so beloved over 20 years after it was first released? The answer is, of course, the characters and their relationships with each other. There is so much mystery with Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa, and the question of who Cloud might end up with in the end is something that fans of good stories love to see and experience. That concludes my review of the original game. Now on to what I think I will enjoy and what I am most looking forward to in the remake. Number 1, I am looking forward to all the characters, seeing them move in realistic ways, and hearing them talk with voice actors. Number 2, I am looking forward to the battle system, which I know will be action-based. I have heard good things about the battle and materia system, so I am confident I will enjoy them. And finally, I am looking forward to the mini-games. If there's one thing that Square Enix does well, it's mini-games, some of which I have sunk way too many hours into. I may make some videos where it's me simply playing the mini-games, like darts and squats. Well, that is it. Thank you for checking out my channel and listening to the end of this video. Contribute to the comment section if you would like. I do my best to respond to each and every one. And please take care of each other and be kind to one another, as these are uncertain times. To end this video, here is a small portion of the main theme of Final Fantasy VII Remake.